A home invasion, mysterious footprints, and a body lying in a pool of blood.
Whoever did this has a head start. I don't like head starts.
I just couldn't understand how something like this could happen.
Every time I say I think I've seen it all, I see something new.
I was in total disbelief, total disbelief.
As Lieutenant Joe Kenda searches for answers, he discovers an unthinkable truth.
Well, my. The fog begins to lift, so it's time for a little payback. I often talk to relatives and neighbors, and they say, she didn't have an enemy in the world. Well, I disagree. She had one. That's what made her look like this. My name is Lieutenant Joe Kenda. I've solved almost 400 homicides. Every case is unique, but there's one thing that never changes. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories.
September 27th, 1988. It's a warm autumn afternoon in East Colorado Springs. School's out, and 15-year-old Chuck Limbrick has met up with his best friend, Christopher Morrow.
The two of them had gone to the same school, and then Chris's family moved north. Chris was such a dedicated friend to Chuck that when he wanted to visit Chuck, Chris actually had to take the bus.
The boys arrive at Chuck's house on Potter Drive just past 4 p.m. But Chuck is surprised to find the front door isn't open as usual.
It's locked.
He realized that he had lost his key. There was a neighbor who kind of kept keys for the neighborhood kids in case they got locked out. They went to the neighbor's house to get the key that was always kept there.
Hey, Mr. Roberts. My front door is locked. I was wondering if you had a key.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it's that one.
Alrighty. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will be back.
Hey, Chris, how's your dad?
While Chuck tries the key, Christopher stays behind to chat with the neighbor, Bill Roberts.
Dad enjoying his new job?
Yeah.
But the friendly conversation is interrupted by a blood-curdling scream. Bill and Christopher race over to the Limbrick home. Once inside, Bill makes a gruesome discovery.
He went through the front door, downstairs, and found Betty Limbrick. She'd been shot in the head once.
Oh, my God. Okay, well, boys, back upstairs.
While Bill ushers the boys back to his house to call 911, young Chuck tries to process the traumatic event.
He was badly shaken by that, horrified by the realization, and then actually sick to his stomach over the whole thing.
When first responder Don Chagnon arrives on the scene, he proceeds with extreme caution.
We checked the interior of the house to make sure that there was nobody else inside. See her downstairs, face down on the floor. There's a large pool of blood underneath her head. There was no vital signs. She was obviously beyond resuscitation.
Once the victim is pronounced dead, homicide detective Lieutenant Joe Kenda is notified of the body.
Kenda.
We are always called anytime a death occurs outside the presence of a doctor to determine method and manner.
Minutes later, Kenda pulls up at 520 Potter Drive and takes a moment to survey his surroundings.
Everything about this neighborhood is perfectly normal. All these homes are very well kept. There are no houses in any state of disrepair. This is a major event for this neighborhood.
Before stepping inside,
How you doing? What do you got?
Kenda asks Officer Chagnon for his take on the crime scene.
When I first came down, saw a lady laying in a puddle of blood.
When we first got there, we saw the one shell casing, the entry wound to the head, which would be typical of a suicide.
But Kenda knows that violent crime investigations are not always that open and shut.
There are a number of possibilities as how this person came to be dead. You can't pursue one versus another more vigorously because all could be true. You don't know enough yet to have an opinion.
To determine if this death is in fact a suicide, Kenda needs to learn more about the victim herself.
Who is this woman? Her name is Betty Jean Limbrick. She's 42 years old.
She was extremely well liked in the community, just a wonderful lady. She was kind of the all-American mom, holding down jobs, did charity work, worked very hard for her church.
It would seem as if Betty Limbrick had a lot to live for.
She is married. She has several children, most of whom are adults and have moved out of the house. She has one child remaining at home, and that's Chuck, the young man who found her when he borrowed the neighbor's key.
Kenda and his team have also learned that Betty's work schedule often allowed her to return home in the early afternoon.
She worked for School District 11, and she drove a bus full of kids every day. So she worked in the morning, and then she was off for a couple hours while the kids were in school, and then she went back and drove the kids in the afternoon after school.
Something about that scenario doesn't sit right with Kenda.
Something's wrong here. You have a 42-year-old woman, mother of several children, who's discovered in the middle of the afternoon in a upper-class neighborhood in her own home. She had only been home a few minutes when her death occurred. That's unusual.
Kenda makes his way down to the basement, where he finds Betty Limbrick's body at the foot of the stairs.
Gravity affects the amount of blood that's seen at a crime scene. There's a slight cant to the floor. Her body drains blood. So the blood pool is thick and it is huge because most of the blood in her body, 6 to 8 pints, is now on the floor.
Kenda notices more evidence sprayed across a nearby wall.
The only thing that'll produce high-velocity blood spatter is a bullet. It is traveling faster than the speed of sound, and it breaks the human body upon entry. It produces a cloud of blood, a red mist, referred to as high-velocity blood spatter. I see that on the paneling next to her body. I need to look closer. It requires me to step in the blood. Part of the nature of this work is you get dirty. I get into a crouch and I look at her head. She has a single entry, close contact gunshot wound to the left temple. When I say close contact, I mean that the gun was less than an inch from the surface of her head.
All signs indicate this may indeed be a suicide. Until Kenda discovers that Betty's head wasn't the only point of entry.
She has a gunshot wound to the right hand. It's from the back of her hand at the joint of the middle finger, and there's an exit wound in her palm. Because the hand wound would be very painful, she may be collapsing from the pain. Then the second shot is administered. This doesn't fit at all with a suicide.
The 2 slugs Kenda finds on the floor confirm his suspicions about the true nature of the crime.
One has ricocheted, most likely the hand wound. The other's the headshot. We determined them to be .357 Magnum, and I'm thinking, well, pretty hard to shoot yourself twice. Plus, apparently a little fairy came and took the gun away. I don't think so. Now, unless this lady works for this circus, she didn't shoot herself. Somebody else did. Now, I've gone from low to 6th gear. This is a murder in the middle of the afternoon in a nice neighborhood. This changes everything, and it gets a lot more complicated.
Kenda begins this homicide investigation the same as all the others, with a simple but crucial question.
Who would want to kill her? Somebody wanted to. I have no idea who. I need to find out, but at this point in time, possibilities are endless.
Making matters worse, the killer has almost a 2-hour head start.
I don't like head starts. The person responsible is busy. They are destroying evidence. They're distancing themselves from the crime scene. They're establishing an alibi. They're doing all kinds of important things. And what are you doing? You're walking in a circle, wondering what the hell happened here.
And this is where we found the purse.
That's when Officer Chagnon leads Kenda upstairs, where he's discovered a promising clue.
Her purse. All the zippered pockets are open and unzipped. Her credit cards are there. Her ID is there, but there's no cash.
The missing cash leads Kenda to a new line of thinking.
Did she come home and discover a burglary? And in panic, the burglar shot her? That's a possibility.
The purse isn't the only piece of evidence pointing to burglary.
There was some signs of forced entry to the back of the house.
You've got the window that's open in the back, you've got the screen pulled off, you've got some footprints in the dirt under the deck.
Maybe somebody thought she was going to be out of the house all day instead of coming home for that split between her shifts. Maybe something bizarre happened.
Kenda knows most burglars are repeat offenders and confine their targets to areas they're familiar with.
Burglary isn't a one-time thing. Burglary is a pattern crime. You don't do one burglary, you do hundreds of them. You're a busy guy. You and your friends are climbing in somebody's window if you're awake. And you're stealing currency, guns, anything that's easily disposed of. So tell me about that. We're looking for somebody willing to confront a homeowner. Find me a pattern. Find me guys who do this sort of crime. Check into this in detail. Auto theft, violence, burglary, this neighborhood, any other neighborhood.
Kenda orders his team to scour their records for recent burglaries in the vicinity. But the search offers few answers.
We got nothing. It's an extremely rare event. We haven't had a burglary for 2 years. There is no information out there that points in any particular direction.
While considering the home invasion theory, Kenda uncovers another crucial clue.
Where's her car? She parks in the garage. There's nothing in the garage. Now I need to find a car. I want to know who or what is in it, and I want to know right now.
But before Kenda can track down the missing vehicle, he'll discover there's even more to Betty's murder than meets the eye.
You look at that body. That's up close and personal. That's not shooting her from 30 feet away, or just firing a couple of shots and getting lucky. This is an execution.
"42-year-old Betty Limbrick was found by her son lying lifeless in a pool of blood. The initial theory was suicide, but Lieutenant Joe Kenda has discovered evidence that points to a breaking and entering gone awry. And Kenda has just identified a pivotal clue missing from Betty's garage.
Where's her car? She drives it to work every day. She parks in the garage. There's nothing in the garage. You have a screen off a window, you got footprints in and out of this room, you have cash missing from a purse, now you have a stolen car. What if one or two people break into this house because they think nobody's home, our victim comes home, there's a confrontation, shots are fired, they steal the car, and they run? Very possible.
Finding the missing car could lead Kenda to Betty Limbrick's killer or killers.
We put that out to every agency in the area. Car stolen in a burglary homicide. Here's the vehicle, here's the plate number. Find that car.
Kenda knows every murder investigation is a race against time.
I think about a clock ticking, but I don't think about us not finding the person and therefore worrying we're never going to. I never think about that. If you do, you're a defeatist. We just haven't found the right path yet, but we'll find it. We just haven't gotten there yet.
In the meantime, Kenda needs to speak with the first witness on the scene, Betty's youngest son, Chuck.
He discovered his mother dead. That is tragic.
According to neighbors, Chuck was especially close with his mother.
Let's see. What you got?
She dotes on him. She loves him. She gives him her undivided attention. They describe Chuck as a quiet, polite young man who is a budding musician.
Chuck also accompanies his mother to church every week, where she encourages his interest in music.
He performs at the church. He plays a bass guitar. He plays a 6-string guitar. He volunteers to teach other kids how to play. He loves it. And he's very good. He's talented.
He was a diamond in the rough. And he was a very, very strong influence in the program because he believed so highly in music.
By all accounts, Chuck is as popular as he is artistic.
He was running for one of the officers of student council the very next day. So very well liked by the student body, obviously very charismatic.
Detectives find Chuck Limbrick next door, where he's being consoled by neighbor Bill Roberts and his best friend, Christopher Morrow. Kenda knows it's an unusually delicate situation.
Hey, Chuck, I know this is really, really horrible. I'm very sorry about your mom.
I realize this kid has just lost his mother. And I tell him that. Chuck, I know this is a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. But I need to ask you to tell me what happened.
I was walking home. We were walking home. And,
Chuck gives it a shot, but the conversation is short-lived.
He starts to tear up while he's telling me this. I don't want to press it much further than that. This kid has already seen his mother dead in his house. I don't need to make his day any worse than it already is.
Chris, is there anything you can add to it?
Kenda turns to Chuck's best friend, Christopher, who is also visibly shaken.
I ask him to tell me what happened. He repeats the story. It's identical to the story he tells the officers. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm sorry to have to ask you these things. It's part of the work.
Kenda has learned nothing new from the boys' accounts, but he wonders if neighbor Bill Roberts could shed some light on the case.
I go talk to Bill. Do you know if Betty has any enemies? If anybody would hurt her?
She was just a real nice person.
Everybody loves Betty. Nobody would want to hurt her.
It's a refrain Kenda has come to know all too well.
I often talk to relatives and neighbors, and they say, she didn't have an enemy in the world. Well, I disagree. She had one. That's what made her look like this. People lead secret lives. People know each other based on surface contact. They don't know what's beneath that surface. They don't know what's really going on in someone's life. We have to find that out.
Is there anything else you can think of?
You know, I heard rumors that there might have been an infidelity, but I don't know.
The neighbor was able to flesh out the situation at the Limbrick household a little bit more. There was a little bit of neighborhood scuttlebutt that maybe there was an affair going on. Maybe Betty was having an affair. So yeah, you got a woman dead in her home, no particular reason, middle of the day, purported marital problems, friction going on. I'm looking for that husband.
People always say, well, it's the husband. Well, a lot of times it is. People who live together closely have issues. Is Dad a suspect? You bet he is.
The alleged affair isn't the only thing pointing to Mr. Limbrick as a possible suspect.
Well, he did tell me that he recently bought her a gun for protection.
Well, you know, Chuck Sr. told me one time he was going to buy a gun to give to his wife for her to protect herself. Not only do we have a married guy, now we have a guy that maybe bought a gun. Well, at this moment, I'm real interested in anybody that owns a gun.
Could marital troubles have led Chuck Sr. to murder his own wife and attempt to disguise it as a botched robbery? To find out, Kenda must track down Betty's husband.
I need this guy, and I would like to have him 10 minutes ago. Is he running from this crime? Does he have the gun he bought with him and he used it to kill his wife? Well, we're going to find out, because I need Charles Sr. in my hands.
Mother of 4, Betty Limbrick, was found shot and killed in her basement. Lieutenant Joe Kenda has learned that the victim may have been having marriage troubles. And her husband, Charles Limbrick Sr., recently purchased a handgun. Could trouble in paradise have led to a domestic homicide?
It is common. Unfortunately, married men and women don't always get along. Somebody decides that it's time for this to end, and we're not going to bother getting involved in the expense of an attorney. We're just going to buy this gun, and I'm going to resolve this right now.
The first order of business is to track down Betty's husband.
Where is Charles Sr.? Does he have his gun in his waistband and he's crossing a state line to get away from me?
Kenda's team zeroes in on Charles Sr. It turns out he is crossing state lines, but not for the reason Kenda suspected.
All the effort finally produces his whereabouts, and he's 800 miles away.
Her husband was a truck driver and he was out of state.
The guy had a rock-solid alibi. His trucking company knew where he was. He had been in touch with them.
It's the moment of frustration you get in these cases. She'd been dead for less than an hour when discovered, so unless he's got an F-15 in his pocket, he's 800 miles away. Could not have been him. I liked Dad. Dad's not part of it. Now what?
Just then, the case takes a dramatic turn.
Kenda.
Patrol unit calls, says we have the car. Boo.
All right, we'll be right there.
I'm thinking, okay, we may find evidence that's critical. We could find fingerprints. We could find all kinds of goodies in that car.
And since you've got a body at the house, the chances of somebody connected with that being the one that drove the car away look pretty good.
But when Kenda learns the location of Betty's car, he begins to doubt his original robbery theory.
They are less than a mile from the scene. Why is it here? And why is it so close to that crime scene?
If somebody came into that house to steal the car, then got the car, drove it, blocks away and dumped it, they went through a lot of stuff to get a car to drive for a very short distance.
It doesn't fit anything about auto theft, particularly an auto theft taken in the course of a violent crime. It just doesn't work for me. But so far, we don't have any evidence yet. We have to examine it.
Less than 2 miles from the crime scene, Kenda finds the missing vehicle.
There's the car, parked in a shopping center parking lot.
How you doing?
I think I found your car.
You didn't touch anything, did you?
No, sir. I've got crime lab and around.
All right, thanks.
We look it over. There's no blood transfer on the steering column, no blood in the car at all. There's no evidence apparent of any value in the vehicle.
No blood, no weapon, nothing in the backseat? No.
The lack of evidence only raises more questions.
This is not what auto thieves do. They don't drive a short distance and walk away. It's very odd to me. Why is the car there? Why is it so close? Why is there nothing in it? It's, at that point, a mystery to me.
Kenda and his men canvass the nearby shopping center in search of anyone who might have seen the person behind the wheel of Betty's car. It's certainly no easy task.
Joe Kenda.
Jay Bernard.
You see this four-door car right here?
Yes, sir.
Do you happen to see who dropped that car out?
No.
You're asking people to remember who parked a car in a 3,000-car parking lot. Good luck.
How long's it been there?
Couple hours. No, it's been there for 2 days. No, it has.
Nobody has a clue. Somebody thinks it's been there for 5 days, somebody else thinks it's been there all morning. So you have all sorts of misinformation coming into your hands. Nothing of any use.
It's a problem common among secondary eyewitnesses.
People who are witnesses to crimes that aren't really witnesses, this is their moment in the sun. The police are here. Oh, man. And they're not wearing uniforms, they're wearing cheap suits. This must really be important. So therefore, I'm important. That car's been there for a week. No, it hasn't. So you have to sift through all that. What's it mean? Nothing.
It also means Kenda and his crew are back to square one.
The frustration just keeps building. So you have to just stop. Just stop. I want to think about this. Where are we now? The only thing that's still true right now is Betty's still dead. Nothing else is. So we've got nowhere. Let's go back to the beginning.
The beginning means the crime scene and any potential witnesses who may have slipped through the cracks.
Was there anybody that wasn't home that we can go back to now and talk to? Oh yeah, several addresses, no answer. Fine, do that and come and tell me.
Later that afternoon,
29213.
one of Kenda's men radios back with a promising new lead.
He says, you're gonna like this. I'm gonna like what? I got a kid, juvenile female, this girl named Nikki, who says she's got information about this case.
Directly across the street from the Limbrick home, Kenda meets 14-year-old Nikki Lindquist.
How you doing? I'm Joe Kenda, the detective working on this case.
I came home to see a bunch of people in our driveway, not knowing what was going on. I remember being, pretty shocked.
You have some information for me?
When Kenda asks the teenager if she saw anything unusual the day of Betty's murder, she immediately drops a bombshell.
I was walking home from school and I saw Chuck's mom's car driving down the road.
I know the family, I know Mrs. Limbrick, I know her car. I saw that car today.
This kid from school, Chris, he was in the car.
I couldn't see who was driving it, but the kid in the passenger seat was Christopher Morrow.
The same Christopher Morrow Kenda had spoken with just hours earlier, who was there to console his grief-stricken best friend. Could he have something to do with Betty Limbrick's murder? Kenda asks Nikki to tell him more.
Well, I know Chris has been in trouble with the police.
Chris was in my 8th grade history class. He was kind of troubled. There were times that he'd lie, and it was probably one of the things that kind of helped me make the decision to distance myself from him.
So I have somebody run Christopher Morrow's name.
When Kenda's men do a background check on Christopher, they realize he's more than just your average troublemaker.
He is an auto thief. Got arrested for stealing a car. He talked to the police and gave them a bunch of other names and arrested some other people too. Two things key in my mind when she says that. Okay, he's a thief, but more importantly, he's a talker. He doesn't like going down by himself. That is terrific information to have.
It also leads Kenda to believe Christopher's grieving friend routine may have been an act.
Everybody lies to me. I'm accustomed to it, but it doesn't stop me from taking it personally. So it's time for a little payback with Christopher. My whole demeanor changes. I'm no longer confused. I'm no longer walking in a circle. Christopher Morrow, you little bastard. Why was I feeling sorry for you? The race is already over. He just doesn't know it.
"15-year-old Chuck Limbrick came home from school to find his mother, Betty Limbrick, dead from a gunshot wound to the head. After several false leads, Lieutenant Joe Kenda has finally narrowed in on a suspect: Chuck Limbrick's best friend, Christopher Morrow.
Here we are, we're in close pursuit of a 15-year-old boy with a stolen gun. for killing his friend's mother. All the frustration, all the oversight, mistake, things that are happening, nobody seems to know. Dad is 800 miles away. We're getting nowhere in the burglary thing. Nothing's vague now. The smoke has lifted, the air has cleared, and I'm focused. We need to talk to Christopher, and we need to rattle his bones.
But there's still a nagging question about Kenda's new suspect.
The concept of a 15-year-old friend killing somebody's mother, you go, what are the dynamics with that? You know, especially he was in this woman's house frequently, had been for a couple of years. What could she have done that would have made him want to murder her?
You've got to have a reason to kill somebody. It may be an insane reason, it may be completely twisted, it could be anything. But you need a reason. Does Christopher Morrow have one? I don't know. Let's go find out.
Before interviewing the teenager for the second time, Kenda needs to speak with the boy's parents.
You never go directly to someone. You approach them from afar. Their family, their friends. You circle them a little bit and see what you can learn. So Christopher has a father and a mom. Let's go talk to them.
Mr. Merrill, is your husband home?
Yes, Detective Kenda.
Could you go get him for me, please?
When Kenda arrives, he gets right down to business.
Do you have a handgun, Mr. Merrill?
Yeah, I do.
Go get it for me, would you? Comes back downstairs with a look of shock in his face. He says, I can't find it. You can't find it? No.
Do you have any idea where it is?
I have no idea.
You have paperwork on that gun? I do. Let me see it. Smith & Wesson Model 19, 6-inch barrel, .357 Magnum revolver.
The slugs found at the crime scene were from a .357 Magnum.
Now I'm thinking, okay, Christopher's in the car. Christopher has a gun that he stole from his own father, and the gun's the right caliber. Now we are cooking. I don't have any more theories. I have Christopher, and he's going to be all I need for right now.
I went to speak with your son again right now.
Fearing the worst, the Morrows begin to panic.
They come unglued. Well, is Christopher involved in this? Oh my God, are you going to arrest my son for murder? One question after another, which you ignore. I ignore. Your son may or may not be part of that investigation. We need to talk to him right now.
When Christopher sees Lieutenant Kenda again, the 15-year-old doesn't look happy.
He walks into the room, stops dead in his tracks. Hello, Christopher. How are you? You remember me.
Have a seat.
I have more questions. And I want you to think about it before you answer me. I want you to clearly recall what you did. Do you understand? Yes? Tell me.
We walked home to Chuck's house, and the door was locked.
He goes through the same story, pretty much on the mark.
As Christopher spells out his version of events again, Kenda gets an idea.
I know that Christopher can talk. He has before. I'm thinking of ways to get into his head. While we're sitting there just talking and he's telling me his story, I'm looking at his shoes and I'm thinking about those footprints I saw.
Those are pretty nice shoes you got there.
Let me see it. And he kind of extends his leg and lets it profile. And I said, no, take it off. Well, I don't want to take it off. You take it off or I'll take it off. So he takes off the shoe and he gives it to me. I turn it over and I'm studying the tread. I'm not studying the tread, but I want him to think I am. And I'm not saying anything to him. I'm just looking at it very, very carefully.
Would you find it strange if I told you we found a footprint outside of the window that matches the tread on these shoes?
No. A whole lot of people have those shoes.
It's true, a lot of people do, Chris. But you know something interesting? So do you. And now he's rattled. He's shaking, he's scared to death. Great. I've got both fingers up Christopher's nostrils. And he knows it, and so do I.
You could even see that troubled look in his face. And he was feeling that Christopher wants to tell me something right now. He wants to get this off his chest. He knows he's getting in too deep. How can I help him do that?
So I ask him a punishment question. Very useful technique with adults. It works especially well with kids.
What do you think should happen to somebody that kills someone in cold blood?
And his lip is quivering the whole time.
They should be locked up for a very long time.
What if that person was a kid?
What do you think ought to happen to him? Silence. Oh, Christopher, I could kiss you on the mouth.
Kenda has his prime suspect right where he wants him.
When you see those tells, the eye movement, the facial muscle contortion, the nervous feet, all the things that liars do, you are rounding that clubhouse turn. You're talking to the right guy. You just have to get him to go the rest of the way.
I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do, Christopher. You're gonna start telling me the truth.
Tell me what happened. And Christopher, don't lie to me. I know it when you lie to me, and I don't like it.
Little does Kenda know, Christopher Morrow is about to reveal the most shocking truth of all and take the investigation in a direction no one saw coming.
He impresses me as a participant kind of guy. He's not a leader, he's a follower. Followers don't shoot people, leaders do.
Lieutenant Joe Kenda is interrogating 15-year-old Christopher Morrow in order to uncover his role in the murder of his best friend's mother, Betty Limbrick. The teenager appears ready to crack.
He's getting himself in deeper and he knows it and he's trying to look for a way out. And that's when he came clean and said, let me tell you what happened.
And he lays it out, absolutely lays it out, chapter and verse.
What Christopher reveals is not what Kenda expected. In fact, it's anything but.
Christopher says that about a month ago, Chuck comes to him.
Chuck told me he was gonna run away.
He just wants to go start a new life, and he wants to go to Canada. Christopher says, you know, I'm gonna run away with you. I got in trouble over that car thing, and my parents have been on my case, and I want to go to Canada with you and live there.
But the morning they planned to leave, Chuck called Christopher with a last-minute request.
He says to Christopher, bring some protection. What do you mean? Bring a gun. Do you have a gun? My dad has a gun. Bring it. So he goes to his father's closet, takes the gun in the brown holster, throws it in a backpack, and heads over to Chuck's.
The boys pile into Chuck Sr.'s car and pull out, headed for adventure up north. But they don't get very far. While at an intersection, Chuck sees something that alters his plans.
Chuck sees his mom driving the Buick on her way home from work.
We gotta be her home.
And he speeds up, floors the car to get there before she does. He doesn't say why. He doesn't say why he needs to beat her home. He just says that he does.
And they drive back to the house before Mom gets there. They go in through the back window and they wait downstairs.
When they get inside, Chuck says, did you bring the gun? And Christopher, yeah, I brought it.
Give me the gun. Why? Just give me the gun.
So he does, he gives it to him.
Christopher says he watched in fear as his best friend stepped into the hallway, gun drawn.
Morrow said he stayed in the bedroom. Chuck positioned himself at the bottom of the stairs down to the lower level. Mrs. Limbrick came into the house.
Chucky, are you home?
And Chuck did not respond. There was quite a bit of time before she came down to the lower level.
Christopher doesn't know what to do. He stays put. He stays in that room. And that works for me. Because consider, he's a follower, not a leader. He's frightened now. Chuck's got a gun, for God's sake, and he's going out in that hallway to confront his mother.
Christopher said he could hear the gun click. It's a heck of a noise to hear that hammer being pulled back, and it really reverberates, if you will, in a small room.
But the click of the hammer is nothing compared to what Christopher hears next.
Chucky?
He hears a gunshot. He hears Mrs. Limbrick say, "Chucky, I love you." He hears a second gunshot. He hears Mrs. Limbrick hit the floor.
According to Christopher, he then stepped out of the bedroom to find Betty Limbrick's dead body lying face down at the foot of the stairs.
He comes out, he can't believe it. There is a puddle of blood forming around her head, and Chuck looks at him and says, "Get some trash bags. We're gonna bag her up and dump her somewhere."
Christopher says he was overcome with fear and convinced his best friend to change course.
He says, no, somebody may have heard those shots and we need to get out of here. Chuck then decides, okay, let's turn this into a burglary situation. We can make this look like a burglary.
The boys then made their way upstairs, where Chuck took all of the cash from his mother's purse, along with her car keys.
They drove the car over to a nearby shopping center. Apparently, they felt for some reason they had to dispose of her car.
We gotta figure something out.
And they're sitting there talking about what their story will be. Chuck comes up with the idea of, I'll throw away my keys in a field, and then I can bring the neighbor in as a witness and say, can you let me into the house? I forgot my keys. So it looks like this discovery of a body and a burglary that's gone bad.
Kenda is blown away. By all accounts, Chuck Limbrick seemed like the perfect all-American kid.
Nobody thought that Chuck, the musician, the polite, quiet, good student, could kill his mother. How tragic is it that you bring somebody into the world and you nurture them and you love them and you raise them, and 15 years later, they take you out of the world? How can that be? You look at that and you think, well, my. That's a little cold, isn't it, Chucky? You killed your own mother?
But what Kenda can't figure out is why. Christopher Morrow offers up an answer to that question as well.
He couldn't take it anymore.
Christopher talked at great length about how Chuck hated his mother, that she disciplined him, she wouldn't let him do what he wanted. There was always one confrontation after another.
Chuck really didn't like being disciplined, even things like just grounding, which is the type of thing she was doing. And so there was sort of some resentment building up there.
Christopher recalls that right before the murder, Chuck said something truly chilling.
He said, if I don't shoot her, she's going to track us down and we're not going to be able to run away. She'll bring me back at some point. And so that was at least what his stated motive was at the time.
Chuck was vehement that his mother would find them and they needed to kill her to make sure that didn't happen.
Kenda has one last detail to sort out.
At the very end of this conversation, once we're clear on what happened, what'd you do with the gun? Well, they took it to Emerson Junior High School, which is where Chuck went to school, and they hid it in a dumpster under a cardboard box. We went to the dumpster at Emerson Junior, found the weapon still in the brown holster, 2 expended casings, 3 live, .357 Magnum. Chuck's fingerprints are found on the weapon. It is the weapon that registers to Christopher Morrow's father.
Kenda sets out to arrest Chuck Limbrick for the murder of his own mother.
He's at his mother's sister's house staying with them because, of course, his father's still on his way back from Louisiana and his mother's dead.
Hey, Chuck, you know why we're here, don't you?
When Kenda arrives, Chuck doesn't say a word. But Kenda doesn't need him to.
We search him. We pull off his left shoe. We pull off his left sock, and he has $114 in his sock. Money that came out of his mother's purse.
Kenda throws the cuffs on Chuck Limbrick.
You're under arrest for the murder of Betty Jean Limbrick, your mother.
And books him on the charge of first-degree murder.
We arrest him without comment, without incident, for the murder of Betty Jean Limbrick.
For the murder of Betty Jean Limbrick, Christopher Morrow receives 8 years in prison for his role as an accessory. For killing his own mother, however, Chuck's sentence is much steeper.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder.
We convicted Charles Limbrick Jr. of first-degree murder and sentenced him to life in prison in the Colorado State Penitentiary at age 15. He was the youngest person ever placed in the Colorado State Penitentiary in the history of the state.
Even with the guilty verdict, those who knew Chuck Limbrick have a hard time coming to grips with the horrifying nature of the crime.
I could not believe that this young man would do that. He had just been hanging out over here at the band room after school. This couldn't have happened. I was in total disbelief, total disbelief.
I remember feeling, why did he have to do that? Why couldn't he just run away? I think about the sadness of how he must have been feeling, so desperate that he had to come to that. I think he must have been pretty desperate. And a lot of pain, I would imagine.
How many Chuck Limbricks are there in this country? Well, there's 318 million people in this country, give or take a few. There certainly has to be some, now doesn't there? The number? I have no idea. To say there are none would be naive. Children who kill their parents are rare. It doesn't happen. It's not a common thing. But as is true in every murder, keep an open mind. Anything could have happened here. And that was certainly true in this case. Chuck is an example of the adolescent mind. He doesn't consider ramifications. He doesn't consider what happens next. He acts. Charles had an option. Don't shoot your mother to death, and we won't put you in the joint. But if you do that, then you're going to be in there forever.